Hey team, welcome to episode 113 of Transition Talk, where we talk about dental transitions and how to navigate the sometimes messy path to practice ownership. There is no doubt that we receive a lot of questions here at NTP. I mean, that is one of the biggest reasons we created this podcast. But we love to educate and make sure you're informed to make the best decision for your career and your dental transition. Now, we also want to ensure you're asking the right types of questions to maximize your time when you're talking to your team and that you're making productive progress in your transition. So today, we're going to do something a little fun. We're going to go through our favorite questions we like to answer and some that we don't. And of course, we'll dive into the why. But before we get going, Mr. Loretto, hello.
Hey, what's up, girl? How's summer treating you? You're looking extra tan. Yes.
Yes, I just came back from a week with my family at the lake, and it was so fun. I'm glad that we're not going to the lake this weekend. I'm a little waterlogged, but it was fun. It was fun to see the cousins play and just be out on the water.
Little Texas sunshine, little summertime with kiddos.
Jillion degrees, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
What about you?
Been in the sun, girl. I went to Mexico, and then I just came back from Colorado, did a little family time up there. Actually, it wasn't family, it's just Roxanne time. That's
It was me time.
little me time. So, yeah, I went up to a little cooler weather in the Vail, Colorado area. So, did my little hikes and did my little boating activity, a little float down the Colorado. May have had a cold beverage along the way. Kind of funny, there was 10 of us on the float trip, and I was like, we got to get a picture. And there's a kayak coming down, and I go, I'll get the kayak to pull over. And they're like, you can't get a kayak to pull over. I'm like, watch this.
Watch me.
So I'm just yelling at this young 25-year-old couple. I'm like, pull over and take a picture. I'll give you a sandwich and beers. Swear to you.
Did they?
Absolutely. They both paddled in unison, pulled over. They were just like your typical Colorado granola 25 super fit. They had a bottle of water between them, no food.
Oh my goodness.
And so they ate the sandwich with us and we took pictures of them.
Gosh,
and
I love that.
It was kind of fun. So yeah, you know what? Sometimes the ideas I'll come up with on podcasts, this one, you guys came up and I was like, what? I don't even understand what we're doing. Top this, bottom this. I was like, this sounds weak. And then we started prepping, and I'm like, this is fun. I kind of like this.
Super fun. So this idea of this episode came from some blogs I read where they do like top 5, bottom 5 Christmas movies or top 5, bottom 5 fair foods or whatever.
Yeah.
So we decided we started with the lower number, and then as always, we come up with too much content.
Yep.
So we are doing top 10, bottom 10 questions we get from clients. Okay. And so this just means our favorite or non-favorite. It doesn't mean they're necessarily bad or good, and we'll clearly talk to you about why they're not our favorite. And so if you've asked these questions, it's okay. You're fine.
Right.
We love you. But, I'm sure you have questions that patients ask you that you're like, oh my gosh, please don't ask that question. So just think about it like that. So we're going to start. We're going to do all the top, and then we're going to do all the bottom. I don't like ending on negative, but these aren't negative. These are kind of funny sometimes.
We're such positive people. We'll end on the positive. Don't worry.
Don't worry. So we'll start with top. So I want you go question number 1, top question.
So this is more to me like a statement. To me, you get a buyer and they understand it. They know it's an amazing practice. And maybe they've even listened to the podcast and they're like, I'm pretty sure, Charles, you're going to tell me not to mess it up. It's something where maybe that even them and maybe even their spouse have listened to. They've looked through it together. Maybe they're on a joint call. They're excited. And they're just looking for almost that exclamation point on our side to say, absolutely, you know exactly what you're doing, and to move forward with it. I don't know, it just brings me joy that they've done a little bit of that kind of homework.
When you hear that, don't mess it up, because you know that they've heard that from you.
And that could be the first phone call I've had with them, and they just know the information. It could sometimes be the 4th or 5th phone call. And I'm finally glad they get it and they finally found the right practice. So it's really cool that you just see something. It's like a kid kicking their first soccer goal or something. It's like you trained for it and they got it. And it's like you want to celebrate with them.
Yeah. I like that one too. So number 2, one of mine is when I'm talking to someone and we've had a full conversation and they say, what am I not asking that I should? And I just love that question, because to me, it opens the opportunity for me to say, nope, you're fully prepared. You've asked me every question under the sun. Like, you know what you're talking about. Or, you know what you didn't ask me about that I wanted you to, and here it is, right? Or you didn't ask me how we can help you, like those types of things. Like, so I think it just opens an opportunity for us to kind of share or to validate that they have done a thorough job in our discussion. That's the one for me.
So this next one, again, I would say more of a statement. My first one was more on a buyer. This is more where a seller is coming to me and they're saying, hey, Charles, I'm really flexible in my transition plans. I'm really in a great financial position. I really just want to hear your opinion on what your thoughts are on what is fair. I really like this person, this candidate. It could be their associate that's already, and I would just love your opinions. I respect kind of your knowledge base. I maybe have heard you or know the reputation of the firm, and I'm very open to your guidance. And it's just like, to me, I think about a young couple in marriage that are going to almost premarital counseling and just literally saying, we love each other, I don't want to mess it up. What are some tips? Gray hair, old man that's had a 30-year beautiful marriage, of what you could teach us. It's just that same type of approach that kind of like, it's like, oh, this is so good. Now you get to compliment them and kind of shape them a little bit, and they're ready to take that coaching advice, that 10,000 hour experience that we all have as a team.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think those fair and reasonable, when those come out, we're just like so happy.
Yeah,
it's just like the best words.
Yeah.
Another one I like, and this can be a seller or a buyer, but when someone comes and says, you know what, I really know dentistry, but I don't know this, and I am going to have opinions, but I want guidance on like what is right? Like, to me, that's really important, because when I hear that, what I hear is, I'm going to make my own decision, and I'm still going to give you thought and like input, but I want your opinion, and I'm going to like lean on that because you do this every day and I don't, right? Which is the same concept when I go to the dentist. Like, you can give me a treatment plan and you can tell me all the things I need, and I'm going to rely on you, but I might not tell you yes on everything. I might not tell you I want to shave that one tooth or do teeth whitening, because that's maybe not important to me right now. But like, you tell me I'm going to lose a tooth because of X, Y, or Z and I can't see it, I'm going to rely on you, So I think that's important. And I love when I hear that from someone, just because it means that they're going to have ownership in the process, but they're also going to rely on the quote, quote, expert, which is us.
Yeah, and you kind of going back to that, what I was talking about with my client that I liked is, Joellen talked about this in kind of our pre-huddle, is some of the things we have in common here with these people that are top is just they're humble and they're really open to suggestions. And so I absolutely agree with you.
Number 5.
Yes. I've got one for me as on a buyer, and this is where we've discussed it. It's a good deal, and they're still nervous about it to the very end, and they just go, Charles, are you really sure? I'm like, yeah. And it's just to hear them, like that nervousness and your ability to kind of push them through those nerves to get them to do it, and then to see again their confidence, like, okay, I can do this. There's something so rewarding, because to me, and I know our team is really good at this, we are pretty crystal clear on when we see that vision and we know it's going to work, and they like a little bit of push, a little bit of confidence that we can get over that hump. So I love it when we get to that point in that question where they're like, are you sure?
Light bulb moment.
Yeah, and sometimes, are you sure that we should walk away? And they're like, yeah, I'm sure we should walk away as well. That's probably the bottom question, but same thing. It's also a very positive thing.
Yeah. Number 6, mine is buyer or seller again. What can I learn between now and our next conversation, right? Like, what are my action steps? What can I learn? Whatever it is, because again, this is a tedious process, and we can push and pull and prepare you, but like, there are things you're going to have to do. And so for me, when I hear this question, it's like, okay, you're taking ownership. You see it as a priority. You are going to take action. We are going to be taking action, and we're together going to be moving this forward, versus me or someone on our team having to like push and pull and drag the boulder across the finish line. So someone who says, what can I do in between now and then? And the answer might be nothing, right? But the fact that like there's an ownership of that, I think is really a great question.
Yeah, task-oriented person that they want to know exactly the balls in your court, our court, and what my next steps are. Yeah, I love it. Spoken from an accountant. They love people with steps.
Number 7.
I love it when my owner doctor comes to me and says, hey, do you think my practice is ready? And it's clearly hitting on all the cylinders. I mean, a GP practice that's doing $1.3 million, $1.4 million, $1.5 million, 40, 50 new patients a month, plenty of operatories, low marketing dollars, maybe all fee for service, the procedures that are being referred out that the new doctor has the ability to bring in-house, doctor in a good financial situation, a good mental space, in a good leadership position, ready to kind of mentor and bring that person on. And, they're saying, are you sure that my practice is ready? I'm like, oh my God, this thing is going to take off. So I love it from that perspective. That question I get from the seller. And I can also say I love it when a buyer presents to me those same details about maybe a partnerships or something like that when they've interviewed that doctor and have answers to all those questions. So yeah, love
No,
that.
that's huge. So number 8, I think. So I love it. And this is like very self-serving, but I love it when we talk to someone and they're like, I've listened to all the podcasts and the offer that I'm getting is an asset sale. And here's what it is. They're kind of very educated on that. And again, it doesn't have to be our podcast, but I love it when someone has done their homework. And oftentimes that person has been doing their homework long before they found that opportunity, right? Like they've just been so driven towards ownership. And when they're talking to us now, they're excited they have an opportunity. For me, like they've put in the work, they knew what they wanted. And now I'm hearing that they've listened to all these podcasts because they have an opportunity and they're now kind of getting to fulfill kind of what that is, right? So I think if you're listening, you're probably one of those people. But, it's clear when someone has not been doing their homework and thought they wanted to own, and then something fell in their lap or they found something and they've not done any homework, those conversations are very different. And it's a lot of education up front before we get into the meat of like what an opportunity is. So
yeah, no, I love it too. When I talked about this just briefly, but when our spouses are listening too, it could be that finance spouse with the dentist. I'm not sure. So, but that's always cool. I'll rattle off a couple here. This was a conversation this week, and this is one of those moments where I really value, like I can imagine as a dentist that you're providing some type of procedure, surgery, and there's this gratification and change that you're helping your patient. And it's more than the dollar, okay? So this particular individual is a single dad, young dad, and the practice he showed me, that was pretty great. I mean, it's something I probably would tell him to purchase, and the numbers made sense. He was going to make, call it $500,000. But his commute to his daughter was going to be, or is, because he's working in the practice, 1 hour. And it was really weighing on him. And I kept asking what was important and what's important. And that drive and being that distance away from his daughter, and I mean, that was too much for him.
yeah.
And what's interesting is I steered him away from it. And I just literally told him, whatever, I know his first name, but I won't use it, Jim. I was like, Jim, we're not doing this, okay? You've mentioned 4 or 5 different times how nervous and how important it is to you to be close to your daughter. Here's how we're going to market yourself to this location area that's going to be close to your daughter. I don't care if we need to sell your house and have the house closer. So this was an example of what I enjoy the question, should I do this? Is the answer was no. And to be able to kind of listen to somebody and push them to help them with personal life choices versus a financial choice. So I know this podcast is a lot about finance and the finances make sense, but I really do thoroughly enjoy helping people with some of their life goals. So that was cool. It's just a great conversation. Told the wife about it. I was like, I just really enjoy what I do. So one last one
Number
is
10.
I love it when a seller that we've been working with, and it's a long, painful process. Either I'm in a seller consulting role or we transition to practice. And it's usually like an email or a phone call that basically says, what day do I get the wire? We have closed the deal. Hundreds of communications, all the hurdles between buyer and seller. We're at the finish line. And that's their last question of when do I get my money? I love it because I know the job is complete, and it's a very rewarding thing. So yeah, that's our top 10.
Yep. And now we go to the bottom. And
Yes,
again,
yes.
If you've asked one of these questions, it's okay.
I agree. We've got podcasts and topics about some of these things that we've come up with. So it's not necessarily to be negative. It's just, it's hard for us to answer, I think.
Yeah. So I'm going to start.
Okay.
Number 1 bottom question for me is...
So this one you don't like.
I don't like this question because it's hard for
It
me
ranks
to
number
answer.
1. It is number 1.
I already have a price, so what can you do for me?
Oh, God.
Like when I hear that question on a call, and usually it's not said in like a nice way. Usually it's like kind of like, prove to me what you can do for me. Like I've got this figured out, and like, I don't even know, like maybe I'm just talking to you to be nice to you, like, which is weird because you asked to talk to me. But yeah, that question bothers me a lot, but it's kind of one of those like Southern, like bless your heart things, because at the same time, like if you have a price and that's all you have, like you don't really have a lot, like there's a lot more that goes into this transition. And oddly enough, sometimes we hear this question when it's a partnership. It's a buy-in to a larger thing and there's nothing else that's been decided. I'm like, I kind of don't care what your price is if you don't have all this other stuff figured out. And like, if you think that there's no value in anything anyone else can do for you beyond price, it's probably better you work with someone else.
I like it when I've already negotiated the price. Yeah, I'm looking at your letter of intent. You paid full price. Great job. Yeah, there's 100 other steps. You got the first one out, and you basically signed the broker's letter of intent. You've done it all. Just call me when you're done. I mean, the reality is we're still happy to look at what the offer is and to see what you're buying. But that is definitely a person that does not understand the 100+ things that are involved in a transition. I'm not exaggerating at all when I say there are hundreds of communications that are back and forth between our team, accountants, lawyers, the seller themselves, the buyer, the banks, and insurance, and whoever else. There's a lot that goes on to make these things really, really effectively close. So
Number 2.
Okay, so where do you think I should go? Charles, I'm open to anywhere in the country. Just where do you think? I'm like, I'm not going to answer that. Right? I mean, where are you from? Where's your family from? And
Do you
see
like the sea? Do you like the mountains?
Yeah. And sometimes they're thinking it from an economic standpoint. Okay. And I know I'm going to offend people, but I'm like, okay, I could probably tell you, according to Dentographics, a great resource for you, that you might look at that and see the dentist population per capita maybe is more advantageous in West Virginia and maybe more advantageous in the state of Mississippi, in the Delta. Have you been to those places? Because I have. And it's not a place that I'm probably going to tell you that I'd want to live. You've been to South Texas. No offense, people that live in South Texas. And I mean south as in south of San Antonio. It's hot. It's a desert. It's a poor community. I think about schools. It's tough.
Yeah. And you got to think about, like, I think what you're getting at is it's all like personal preference.
Right.
Like, and it's life. Like you're not just buying a practice, you're literally putting roots somewhere. So it's like, if West Virginia's your jam, great. Right? Like, you can't ask another human where they would go because that's not where you would go. Right. Like,
maybe you're West Texas, South Texas, and that's where you grew up and you've got your family there and you've got farm. Perfect.
Yeah.
That's a perfect place to go.
Yeah.
So just that broadness of almost like, well, I've got some insight to where, you're going to make the most money. This is not about that.
And there's so many things that go into this that I think that some people think the more open they are, the better. But in actuality, like, one of my top would be like, I know I want X, Y, Z, and G, and I'm willing to wait on those things, right? Because then there's like some like finality around like what you're looking for. But when you're someone who's like, maybe I want insurance, maybe I want Medicaid, maybe I'll be here, like, it's hard to navigate. Like, you have to know what you want before you do this. And that question, where do you think I should go, is like the epitome of that.
So, and I know that we're running long on this one, but this is literally the first podcast. This was the one. I am tired of answering this question.
How do I know where to go?
Which one are we going to do first? I will take the lead. This is the one. You figure this out. You like the north, south, east, west? Tell me you like the mountains, and then let's get a game plan. So,
right.
Yeah, had to get that one off. Now I'm done.
Now we've both done our like big one. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Number 3, when a seller calls and says, so I'm going to sell 49%. Like, out. What that means to me is either you're not ready, like you have a control issue, or you are not educated because you don't know that selling 49% does not necessarily mean that like you're going to still have the majority decision. And sometimes you were just told that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like my first question after someone says, I'm thinking of selling 49% is, why only 49% and not 50? Right. And then the answer to that often tells me like, you're not ready to sell, or we're not a good fit for you because the way we will structure a partnership is not what you are looking for. And that is okay. There's a million ways to like build this bridge.
Yeah, they're going into the marriage of, I want the prenup because I'm going to get divorced. It's a high probability. That's kind of the concept.
Yeah.
I just had somebody ask this question this past week, and same thing. It was like, well, they literally asked me, how much is it and how much would it cost to break up if I did join the partnership?
You should not have a partnership.
I'm like, so you're saying if you were an associate for 2 years, you bought in, you gave them the money, and then 3 years later, it didn't work out. That's the question? I was like, a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's just stop.
Yeah, just stop.
Just
and
save
it
yourself.
was a situation too that they'd actually been there for several years and they loved each other. I'm like, I'm urging you to probably still push forward on this.
Number 4.
Okay. This is when the senior doctor kind of is itching to like start a transition, but they're really not ready. And they're like, well, what do you think about me bringing in an associate maybe one day a week? I'm usually at the point to where my guess is they're not ready. They don't have the space. They don't have the pay. There's something there. I want the doctor that's like, I need an associate. If they can work 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, so be it. I am so busy. I've got to have somebody. So when the senior doctor says that, it just gives me this anxiety that they're probably not ready.
Yeah, it's why after the answer question. Okay, number 5. You've never seen a practice like mine before.
Oh, gosh. There's so many unique practices. Yes, we have. I hate to tell you, we've seen special.
We've seen a lot of special. Again, not a bad thing. Like, I love that like, you ask me about my kids, I'm probably going to be like, oh, they're just so great.
Yeah,
they're just
special.
like, you've never seen anyone like her, and that's probably right for me. So it's not a bad thing. It's just one of those things where, like, is this at a level where we're not going to be able to, like, realize that we still fall within norms, like from a value perspective and transition perspective? Or do we think we're so special that we deserve the moon and the stars when, like, no one's going to give you that? Like, your level of how special and then how realistic. If I hear someone say my practice is really special, but I'm just looking for something that's fair and reasonable, I'm in a better position because now we're merging top and bottom.
Yeah, I'd actually say
a top and bottom question.
The value of your business, if it's that special, is probably less. You know what I mean?
That's actually true.
It's much harder to transition. You're
yeah.
transitioning a patient base in a service line. And if you're the only one that can do that, then just
hard.
know that your specialness is causing a discount.
Never mind. Totally normal. Totally basic.
Exactly. Crown and bridge, baby. Crown and bridge. That's all I do.
All right, number 6.
Okay. This is when someone is saying, what are your thoughts on if I should specialize because it has a greater economic impact, as well as maybe joining the military because, or, committing to a 4-year, some type of state program to where it reduces my student loans. Okay. And I'm like, life is short. So if the military is your calling, it's your calling. Go to the military. If it's serving in this state program and it's treating these patients and it's living on this reservation or this area or whatever it may be, and that's your call, then that's your calling. Mm-hmm. This should not be an economic decision. I think that the economics can work itself out the quicker we get into ownership, and we can get ahead there and we can start to tackle this emotional thing of debt. So I don't like it. Just choose the path that you enjoy. If you enjoy surgery, then definitely do a 4-year program. If you enjoy surgery and you want to do some crazy stuff, then do a 6-year program and do it because of that. The money will come later.
Yep. Number 7, can you value my practice, but can you value it where it's like a hybrid between a private practice value and a DSO?
Oh, God.
I hate that because what you're trying to do is then present that valuation likely to a private buyer and say, this is what I could have got, but because I'm selling to you, I'm giving it to you at a discount. And look at this discount. But that discount is still probably well above what a normal private practice value is. And for me, it's not understanding the market. It's not understanding the industry. And it's not really like you being kind of fair to yourself or to your potential buyer, partner, whoever that is, of what is reality.
Yeah, I've got a $3 million practice, just got a letter from private equity saying it's worth $5 million, but there's something about it, the conditions typically that I don't like, and the fact I've run the math with my financial advisor and it says maybe I shouldn't do this, but I have these associates, so therefore I still want my $5 million valuation, or maybe I'll discount it a little bit to like $4.5 million to these associates because, reality is that's what it's worth. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, no. Mm-mm. And then when you even educate them about that that's not how it works, and they're still telling you, well, I don't know, just to me, there just should be this hybrid.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like you're behind. Maybe you just don't have it figured out.
And like, I'm fine if like you want to set a price for your practice and say, this is what I'm willing to sell it for. Like, it's your asset.
Yep.
That's totally fine with me, right? Like, it's not the wanting to sell it at that price. It's the wanting someone to put together something that justifies it when that is not how it works, right?
Yep.
Like, just say, in order for me to sell, this is what I want, and I understand this is above market, but this is what it is, right?
Yep.
I can take that, I can show cash flows, and I can say, this is what is the asking price for this practice, and this is what it takes.
Yep.
But just don't ask me to go and like put pen to paper to cut to like justify it for you, Number 8 is on you.
Yes. So it goes back to your unique practice kind of person where, Charles, I've got this unique practice and I've tried those new associates. And I just don't think that because of COVID and the lack of experience that these new associates came out in 22 or 23 or something like that, I don't think they have enough experience. I'm looking for somebody more with like 5, 7, 10-year experience, maybe someone that just got out of the military. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's like a needle in a haystack. So yeah, let me know if you find them. And if you find them, I'm happy to help you with maybe, coordinating this plan that you have. But as far as if you're asking me to go find them for you, like to list your practice and this is the buyer you're looking for, or list the practice as the partnership you're looking for, this is like next to impossible. The drivers that you are looking for, I always say, they're you. You look in the mirror and say, I'm a driver. I do this, this, and this is what I'm looking for. Yeah, they probably already own a practice. So that's just a search to me that is a little bit more difficult. And you need to, I would say, lower the expectations and to open your mindset of bringing in somebody in the wider pool and being able to lead them to where you are. And that may take a couple of years. And I do think that if you find young people and they're bright and driven, I just think that that person is going on bad experience and just thinking the solution is this other
It's taking their
person.
their ex-girlfriend, boyfriend baggage is coming into play.
Oh, girl, that's you know what, I love the little girlfriend
dating
boyfriend analogy. I can't believe we're 28 minutes in and I hadn't thrown it out there. I still got one or two topics left before I'll figure out how to slip it in.
Number 9. This is also hard for me, but when someone calls us and says, "Can you put together a model where the associates never get to buy in?" Like, I want to give them something and get them on the hook, or like have them have some skin in the game, but I never want to let them buy in.
Yeah.
Right? It's just one of those things where I'm like, again, reality, that's not going to work long term. It might work short term, right? And you might be able to find those, unicorn associates who are just happy to be producers and never own, and we've seen practices where people just say, I never want to own, I'm happy just to be an associate. But to like try to build a model or build something where that is the goal, I just think it's also very risky for them as a seller, right? And doesn't help their financial plan, because now you're building something that no one ever wants to own. That's great.
No, I think it's a beautiful thing if you can figure it out. It's just not something that we can take and execute for you.
Yeah.
I think if you can, as an owner, if you want to just be selfish about it and be able to be the owner, to be the driver, multiple locations, have just associates, do some kind of golden handcuff where you give them X amount of profit out of the business that's small enough to keep your EBITDA and profit at reasonable levels, maybe a small stake in an ownership and maybe a DSO that you kind of set up just for yourself. Man, if you can get there and sell that to the associate, I totally get it and kind of see that vision, and great for you. But it's just not something that we can help execute and kind of support. So, okay, number 10 is thoughts on partnering with corporate, from the beginning. So many young people will come to us and say, hey, I've got this opportunity. And then one of these opportunities is this corporate group is offering them some type of equity ownership. And my response to that is, I think corporate is an amazing opportunity for every dentist for them to take advantage of it. And it could be call this morning where he worked in a practice, it wasn't working out, he left, he went to South Texas, who I just talked about, and threw underneath the bus. Sorry, South Texas. He crushed it. Amazing patient base. He got a year of experience there, doing crazy $100,000+ numbers. And now he's going to go back to purchase his practice. What an amazing experience he learned from there. And so I think that's an amazing option, the benefit of having corporate offices. I just think that when you run the financial plan of how much you make as an associate and then how much you'll make as a small percentage partner in corporate as the associate, I think that there's a much bigger upside if you were to own, grow, and then maybe partner and sell back to them. I think that's a better financial option. So I get that question a bunch. I have yet to see a financial sales pitch or story that will outweigh going into private practice, growing it, retirement planning, and then maybe selling it to associates along the way and creating a multi-partnership, or to growing it with associates and selling it to the private equity space. So, and look, I think maybe we just end on a positive note.
Hold on, I want to say one more thing before you end on a positive note. I think that question is also when people are very anxious to own.
Yeah.
And they want to own in any way they can. Like, we've also seen people come to us and want to buy like really just awful private practices that they shouldn't buy, but they've like been looking for so long.
So true.
Or they just want to own so bad. And so I think for me, like, I would rather you not own than own something you shouldn't own just because you feel pressure. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the marriage thing, right? Like, look, me, 2 and you 0. 2 to marriage, like you don't want to just marry someone so you can say you're married by a certain age, right? Like you want to marry the right person. And like, that's what we want for you for ownership, right? Like I don't want you to buy a bad practice just because you're so desperate to own, or enter into a corporate relationship because you're so desperate to just say you're an owner. Like I want it to be the right move for you.
Yeah, I did that. I think it's a safety thing for them.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a situation where they feel that they can't do it.
Yeah.
It's I can't do the HR and the hiring. They have this conception that they just can't and they won't be able to do it. And look, if that's you, then I think at least if you're educated and surround yourself with a bunch of very successful private practices and let those people influence you to say, yes, you can. And if you still, after all of those interviews and all of those meetings, still like, I just can't do it and I want to own something, then I think that's a great space for you. So I don't think ownership has to be necessarily for every single person, but I'm just a big proponent of educating at least so you can make that decision with all the right information.
Yeah. What are we doing to end this on a positive note?
Let's do our favorite questions that they ask about us personally.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I'll start.
Okay.
So, as you know, we talk about our family,
Yeah.
right? And we just took out Noah, our editor, and it's kind of weird that he knew all of our kids' names and what we're doing. And we were at the lake last weekend kind of thing. Like it's just a little weird and creepy. So what's up, Noah? But just having people, like I'll have a 45-minute conversation or something and someone says, I got another question. And it just kind of throws you off and they'll say something like, what's that one spot in Cabo you like? So did Cole get in trouble that time that he didn't bring his passport? Like, did you punish him that? Because I swear that was hilarious. It's when people ask you like a personal question to follow up that was from literally maybe years ago that we recorded it, but perhaps they're just listening, to it. And that's real time for them. It
throws me for a loop.
It does.
Someone asked like, oh, did Lila ever find her bike? And I was like, what?
Oh yeah, I remember.
What? And then I was like, oh, yeah, Lila got her bike stole like however long ago. So that is really cool. That's fun.
And every once in a while when they're kind of like, is this really Christy? Is this really Charles? It feels to them like, it's just so weird to hear your voice because I've listened to your podcast,
It makes me laugh every time.
It's awkward because what do you say?
No, someone will be like, are you the Christy Radcliffe?
Yeah,
and I'm like, the only one I know. That is me.
Yeah, it's just there's no really comment back to that, so.
No, but I love that, and that's why I love this podcast. I just love that like we can get on here and talk about these things and that it's a valuable resource for everyone. And so I always say no question is a dumb question, and this episode might have made you think otherwise, but I truly don't think there's a dumb question. It's just, why are you asking the question and what have you done to prepare and like what does it mean, right? And again, I'll answer any question you ask me. I might give you a hard time for it. Charles might give you a hard time for it. We might say, go listen to that podcast. But at the end of the day, like, I'm glad you're asking the questions and are intrigued.
I have to end on this. I can't believe I questioned you two on this podcast idea. This was great. This was so fun. So you guys are in charge of all the ideas going forward. You nailed it.
Far. All right, folks. That's all we have for today. Thanks for joining us on episode 113 of Transition Talk. As always, make sure to share the transition love with those who may not know of us yet. And of course, subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Until next time.
Thanks, guys.